Hi, I'm Barbara Levin, representing Toby's Fund for Women's Health, a small nonprofit abortion fund in northern Illinois in McHenry County. And I'm so delighted to introduce Leah Greenblum, who is the founder and executive director of the Midwest Accent Coalition. As I understand it, and Leah, you correct me, Mac has been around for a little more than 3 years. You're primarily in the Chicago area, and you do the things that we really need, which are help with the incidentals. You don't do abortion funding, but you help with logistics, with travel, with housing. Did I summarize that well?
Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. Now, you founded this a little more than 3 years ago. Could you tell us what the motivation was?
Absolutely. So, first, thanks for having me. Um,
Our
so,
pleasure.
I first read about a practical abortion fund in New York City about 3.5 years ago. They're called Haven Coalition, and they're a small group, all volunteer, very quite small. And they exist in New York City, and they assist people traveling to New York from all over. And they ride the train with them and they house them. And that's really the extent of what they do. And I was really inspired by this work and inspired by the face-to-face connection between people needing places to stay, women in need, and women who are willing to open up their homes for strangers. And so I thought, how hard could it be? I spoke to people at Haven Coalition before I entered into this project, and I talked to folks in Chicago just to make sure that nothing formal like this existed. And then I started to talk to clinics and host people myself. And at one point, I had two women staying in my small apartment, and that was really special. I mean, right? That's not really the system we use now. We usually typically do one client with one host, but in the early days, it wasn't so organized. So that was really special. It felt like they could connect with each other, and everyone's at different places. And we train our volunteers on how to handle lots of different situations related to mental processing of abortion and just being good emotional support. So, for lack of a better term, I feel like we really try to practice sisterhood, and that's what has kept me interested in this work. And what keeps me going.
Well, that's an amazing story. And what you are doing is everything you're doing is emotional support. Just the idea for some young person, or certainly a person of childbearing age, to be able to go and connect with another woman is just wonderful. It's very inspiring. I realize this varies, but you work solely with volunteers. You must have quite a large retinue of volunteers.
We do. So we're all Chicago based, although we are serving folks who are traveling to, from, and within the Midwest. But our base of volunteers is in Chicago, and that's about 90 folks right now. And so there's people on the client-facing side who are ready and willing to host or drive people around town. And then we have our non-client-facing side, which is growing all the time. Making our meetings more efficient. Making our payments and our reimbursements happen, and of course, talking to clients on the phone and arranging their travel. So, and then all the technology and making sure we're as secure as possible. So there's a lot of volunteer work that happens, and so I think it's also been a learning process of spreading it out, like making sure that people are coming to this work because they want to do it, but knowing that this is no one's full-time job. And then we have realistic expectations, and so we're trying to see what we can. Our volunteers are doing so much for the organization and for the people that we serve, and so what are we doing for our volunteers? I hope that I want to make this a meaningful experience for all of our volunteers. I want to bolster young women and young women of color's voices and resumes, And so hopefully they're getting that out of volunteering.
It's it's amazing, and I'm marveling. Youth. I mean, you have so much energy because, as you said, all of you have other careers, and you're doing this, and you're truly doing the frontline work. It's wonderful. This also requires money. Obviously, you must, beyond everything you're doing, all the logistics, all the support, all the housing, all the travel, you also have to raise money. Um, I will encourage people to contribute to your organization because it sounds like all of it goes right back into the organization. What is what could what could the US do that would alleviate a volunteer organization having to do this? What is the ideal world scenario?
I think a paradigm shift of having abortion be accepted as a routine, safe medical procedure that is anyone's choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think down with controlling women's bodies. It's no small task, but I think that little by little, I hope we continue to have these conversations, and I hope that people continue to realize the way they vote really affects things. So one piece of it is legislation and how we continually see Roe v. Wade being chipped away. That makes the lives of people that need to access abortion care extremely difficult, and it should not be that way. Another thing is we need to be training abortion providers, more of them, all the time. It needs to not be so stigmatized. Someone needs to be able to go to a dinner party and say proudly that they perform abortions and not worry. So again, I think that has to do with the paradigm shift and not making abortion so stigmatized. I think we hit a high. I think in the 70s and 80s of acceptance, and also of the women's movement. There was something special happening. Notwithstanding the folks of color who were sort of being shafted in some ways, but there were lots of things going right. And now I think the way that our country is swinging pretty far right. Abortion is in some ways at the center of that, and opinions are really shifting. That it is a negative experience, and we have to fight that. So, in an ideal world, we would be having abortion as totally acceptable, abortion on demand, and not afraid to say the word abortion. And it can be, an emotionally straining time for lots of people. And it can also be a very easy decision for people. It can be a simple thing, and the more barriers we put up around it can make abortion more difficult, more taxing for people, and that should not be. So that's why math exists.
Well, that's well said. But despite all this, and despite the the ill thinking currently, we those of us who are a little older and past reproductive choice age need to know: are you optimistic that the tide is turning?
Oh gosh, depends on the day. I want to be optimistic. I think to do this work, we must be optimistic, even if we don't want to be. We have to be optimistic. We have to imagine a world where this is possible in order to keep doing this work. So for no other reason, that is why I'm optimistic and hopeful. But we must do the hard work to get there, and we must not make any compromises.
Well, you're amazing. Mac is amazing. I encourage anybody who's watching this, give a donation. I'm sure anything is appreciated. You have a great website, and you have a great organization, and we're very honored to have you, and I'm so impressed with the work you're doing.
It's a two-way street. We're honored to be here. We're honored to be in conversation with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're lovely. Thank you.